Hi, I'm Alistair Thomson. I'm an Australian oral historian and the project leader of the Australian Generations Oral History Project. What I'd like to do in this short video is introduce you to Australian Lives, which is a new type of oral history book that uses some extraordinary technology that allows readers to be listeners and to hear all the meanings and emotions of the voice. It's also a special kind of book that takes the reader online into one of Australia's largest oral history collections. Here's a short trailer produced by one of our students at Monash University in Melbourne.
I was born in Cairo in Egypt.
And my father was a member of the AIF.
Mum was involved in theatre and musicals.
And I think she probably frightened a lot of people.
We used to get a cane.
Because you didn't do your homework?
Yeah, because I didn't do my homework.
And I got pregnant.
A lot of exploring in the mangroves.
You just walk down in the bush.
And they'd see that we're trespassing.
Excuse me. Or do you want me to turn it off? No, it's fine.
Well, this is who I am.
I feel happy because I'm doing it.
It makes you more human.
I'm getting my story out there for people to actually listen to.
In this brief video, I'd like to show you how the Australian Lives book works and what you can do with this new type of oral history book. But first, let me introduce you to the Australian Generations Oral History Project. Australian Generations was funded by an Australian Research Council grant and was brought together four partner organisations: the National Library of Australia, ABC Radio National, and historians at Monash and La Trobe Universities in Melbourne. And between 2011 and 2014, 25 experienced oral history interviewers conducted 300 life history interviews all over Australia, with the interviews averaging about 4 hours in length. In total, we recorded 1,221 hours of digital audio interviews, which are now archived at the National Library of Australia in Canberra. About 2/3 of the interviews are available online with permission, while others can be accessed at the library or under other terms agreed by each interviewee. Some of the interviews are still closed by agreement. They'll all be available before 2100, but until then we just need to be patient. And that's okay, because Australian Generations aim to create an oral history archive that would survive for hundreds of years. People often ask, who did we interview? Oral history projects never create a representative sample. We record a sample of the willing, of people who are happy to record their stories for us and for posterity. But Australian Generations did seek to record a diverse range of Australians, so we recorded 50 people born each decade from the 1930s to the 1980s. We aimed to more or less match the latest population census, with a regional spread across metropolitan, rural and remote Australia, with a balance of men and women and for social class and sexuality, and a broad mix of race and ethnicity. Around a quarter of the interviewees were born outside Australia, and so they represent our multicultural nation. We used our wonderful interviews in a range of productions. ABC Radio National made 10 radio programs on topics such as parenting, schooling and the home. Project historians produced a range of journal articles in which you can read about our oral history innovations and about topics in Australian social and cultural history such as mental health or education, emotion and belonging. And we produced a website exhibition with the wonderful title From Glory Boxes to Grindr, dating in Australia from 1945 to 2015. But for now, I'd like to focus on our paperback and ebook Australian Lives, which is a curated anthology of extracts from the Australian Generations interviews. Now, to understand the special features of Australian Lives, I need to tell you something about the magical technology that underpinned our oral history project. So let me just switch programs, and I'm going to go online, and I'm going to take you to the National Library catalogue. And indeed, if you Google Australian Generations, it will bring you to this site, which has all of the Australian Generation interviews in the National Library catalogue. And you can click and listen to each interview online. So let me just show you one, for example. So here's Malachi Kaloy, who's interviewed by Hamish Sewell in Queensland. Malachi is a Pacific Islander who lives in Queensland. Every time you click on an interview, you have to accept the terms of agreement of the National Library. And this is basically reminding users that these are oral history interviews to be used with care and responsibility. So you click on accept, and then it takes you, so Sorry, I think I missed accept. It takes you to the user interface for that particular interview. Let me show you some of the features of this interface. So here is what we call a timed summary, which is an interview log with brief details on small chunks of the interview and keywords on the right. And each of those chunks, the audio is synced to the text. And you can listen to these interviews in two ways. One, you can just click at the start by clicking up top, or you can click on any one of these extracts and it will start playing that extract for you online. It'll just take you to the National Library online catalogue and play that extract. There are some other lovely features here as well. The interview is completely searchable, and so you can put in a word up the top and like birth or adoption and click and search within that interview, but also across all of the interviews. Which is a wonderful resource. You can look at all the stories about adoption across the best part of 200 interviews within this collection. Let me just show you another interview. Some of the interviews have also got transcriptions as well as a timed summary. So this one with Rhonda King, which we used in the book, like all of the interviews used in the book, we've got a full transcript. And the same applies. Each chunk you can access and listen to as it is. There's a wonderful the other thing, you can download all the files and download the MP3 files as well. But there's a lovely little flag on each extract, which if you click, gives you citation details, gives you a URL for that extract. And you can copy and paste that into any publication. And if your publication is online, the reader can click on that link and it'll take you straight to that extract and play it for them, which I think is pretty magical. So in our Australian Lives ebook, we embedded the URL link for each interview extract, and that link is what enables readers to click and listen to the interview extracts in the book. In short, it's the combination of the National Library's archival technologies that have made our oral history ebook possible. The closest equivalent that I can think of to the National Library technology is OHMS, the Oral History Metadata Synchronizer, a system created by Doug Boyd and colleagues at Kentucky in the United States. OHMS is a freely available software which you could use with your own interviews to make an ebook like Australian Lives. Let me take you now back to the slideshow. And let me tell you about the Australian Lives book, which I co-authored with my colleague, Sydney oral historian Anissa Puri. For the book, Anissa and I used 50 of the 300 recorded interviews, which we transcribed to make selection and editing easier. We only used interviews that were available online because we wanted readers to be able to listen to each interview. We then selected hundreds of interview extracts, edited the transcripts, and then juxtaposed extracts from different narrators and time periods to show change over time and to highlight the diversity of lived experience in Australia over the last century. The book, as you can see, has got 2 sets of chapters. There are 5 chapters that traverse the life course from childhood through to later life. And there are 3 thematic chapters that explore the themes of faith, migration and activism. And then the concluding chapter, Telling My Story, our narrators reflect on what it was like to record their story and why they think these histories matter. In each chapter and each section, the extracts are usually arranged chronologically so readers can follow change and continuity across time and consider the historical, social and cultural factors that influence these narrators' lives. For example, you can trace the experience of Australian childhood as it changed across the decades, as it varied according to region, gender, social class or race and ethnicity, and as new technologies transformed children's play. The paperback of Australian Lives is a great read, but it's the ebook of Australian Lives that allows you to read and listen to the interviews. So what I want to do now is show you how the ebook works. So I'm going to switch programs and open up the ebook. So for this demonstration, I've opened the Australian Lives ebook as a file on my laptop, but you can use any ebook reader such as iBooks or Adobe Digital Editions, which is a free program that can easily be downloaded online. Now from the contents page, you can jump to a particular chapter. So let me click on Migrants and it'll take you to the start of that chapter. At the start of each chapter there's a short historiographical introduction that gives you a bit of background context about the history of migration in 20th century Australia. And then if you click on a few pages, you'll get to the first extracts in the book, this one by Fred Henskens. Each extract has a short introduction to give you a bit of background to that person. So Fred Henskens, for example, was a teenager when he was interned in the Dutch East Indies during World War II by the Japanese. He then came to Australia with his family after the war, but his parents went back to Holland, and Fred and his sister remained in Australia, where he was 16 and by himself when he first settled in Australia. Now for each extract, you can see here the name is highlighted, and if you click on that highlight, it'll take you to the browser will take you to the National Library End User Agreement. So let me show you how this works. So you click on this and it takes you to Fred, and you scroll down and you accept.
So do you think you made the right decision?
But let me, before we go too far into the extract, one thing I like to do when I use the ebook is use split screen so that you've got the ebook and the National Library website on the screen at the same time. I'm going to just close the contents page and take you through to Fred. So there's Fred in the ebook, and there's Fred in the National Library. I'm going to take the time summary down so we've just got the transcript, and it'll play the extract. Let me just point out one thing before I play. When we made the ebook, we edited each of the transcripts. And so you'll notice as you're listening that the verbatim transcript on the National Library interface is different to the edited transcript in the ebook. And that's because the way people speak doesn't work as prose. We know that written prose is not the same as spoken language. And so we had to edit the accounts to make them readable. We took out the false starts, the ums and ahs, false red herrings and tangents. We didn't add words, we didn't change things, but we moved extracts together to make them read more easily for the reader. But the great thing is, as a listener, you can just listen to it and close your eyes, or you can use the verbatim transcript or the edited transcript. It's a new type of listening. It's like multi-track listening, where you can listen to two discordant texts, or you can close your eyes and just listen to the story. And we're not too fussed about the edited transcript, because if you're listening rather than reading, you get the whole thing when you listen to the extract. It's what I call multi-track listening. So let me now play the Fred Henskens extract. I'm going to put the headphones on to listen while you listen for a moment, just to give you a sense. And listen to the voice and think about this. Is a man interviewed in, I think about 2011, and about his experience just after the war in the 1940s. And you can hear his accent, you can hear his emotions in this story.
46 in staying in Australia.
I sure did, because I was very homesick at first, but I couldn't leave. And working for this Mr. Golders on the farm, I was very lonely, and you know, it was a shock, because you had here all by yourself, and trying to, I couldn't speak English very well. I could a bit, and having to learn working in the market garden. I was used to having a good life, you know, because my father had a good job, and the mother, after the war, we still had everything good, but after he lost his leg.
And I'm going to stop Fred there, because one of the features of this book is that as you're listening to the extract in the ebook, it will just continue to play beyond the extract in the book. So that if you're intrigued by that interview, you can just keep listening to it, or you can click to stop it and go back to reading and listening in the ebook. In other words, sorry, I'm just going to give you the ebook in full screen. In other words, the ebook is like a portal. Let me get back to Fred. The ebook is like a portal into the online interview collection. And there are some other features that we really like that also enhance your access to the interviews. Let me open the contents page again. I can show you some of those other features. In each section, there's a set of further reading and listening. So if I just go back into the end of the Ancestry chapter, you can see there that we've got interviews that we didn't include extracts in this chapter, which are on the topic of ancestry, people talking about their family history. You can click on each of these and listen to additional extracts on the topic. And we also provided further reading on the topic for students who want to go further. So that's one useful resource within the ebook, but also we've got a narrator index. So every narrator is indexed, so you can go to, there's Fred Henskens, and you can click on all of the extracts from Fred and actually listen to his story across time. It's a quick way to follow one person's story rather than the way that the book is arranged thematically and chronologically. And finally, we have a general index. And again, it's indexed with incredible detail, so you can look up places, you can look at adoption, you can look at ageing, agnosticism, and so on and so forth, and go straight to all the extracts on that index item. And indeed, let me just show you one thing we did when we were indexing the book is we indexed emotions. So we listened to all of the interviews, and every time there seemed to be a significant emotion, we indexed it. So you can find fear or terror, happiness and joy, laughter and love. And so you can explore the emotional lives of our narrators from love and hate to shame and joy. Let me go back to my PowerPoint slides. Sorry, stay there. We think Australian Lives is a special type of oral history book for several reasons. First, the book brings Australian history to life. From the viewpoint of so-called ordinary Australians, you can discover how people lived the big changes of the past century. But we also love the way that you can listen to the stories and hear all the meanings and emotions that are captured in voice. You can hear the laughter, the awkward silences, the deep sighs, all the oral qualities that bring the text of a transcript to vivid life. You can get a sense of the power and meanings of voice when you listen to this short extract from the First Loves section. So in the chapter on youth, in First Loves, there's an extract from Arthur Hunter, who's a young Aboriginal man from the remote Kimberley region in northwest Australia. So let me now switch programs and go back to the ebook, and I'm going to go to the narrator index, and I'm going to find Arthur Hunter, and I know it's on page 178, 179, and there's the extract, and I'm going to just get rid of the contents page now, and I'm going to click on Arthur, and hopefully it will come up. Click again. Here we go. I'm going to put my headphones on. Then you have to do the rights acceptance. So just listen to this story. It's a very different voice from Fred Henskins, elderly migrant man, young Aboriginal Australian. Accept, and it'll take you to the extract and play it.
I was thinking about working there, but I was like, nah, I've got a broom just for the girls, you know. And on my last visit down to Broome, had this competition called Kimberley Girl, and 2006. Me, my mate, and my teacher, we built this black border for the staging, and you know, to help the gallery mob, you know, set up. And there was one girl that was in the competition. Her name is Angela Phillips. Yeah. She was there, and excuse me. And she was checking me out from what she told me, and then on the finals night, she got someone to come up and ask me, you know, if you want to go out or, you know, hook up or something. I was a good boy, and I was, you know, the girl come up to me, she's like, "Oh, this girl wanna know." I'm thinking, fuck. I was thinking, gee, they're gonna ask this other dude here, my cousin, but I was shocked that the girl wanted to like go out with me or something, like go out with me, and I was speechless. I was shaken.
Can you explain that that's a bit of Broome style or Kimberley style, about how Anjo didn't come up to you direct, her friend? Can you just explain how that's the style?
Up here in the Kimberleys, we don't, well, some people do, but most people don't. They get a friend or a cousin to ask a girl or a guy out. So they don't go directly to that person and ask them, because they're scared to get shut down or get rejected. When people don't like that, getting rejected. So she did that to me, and she got someone else to do it for her. And I said, yeah, okay, might as well. I was really shy and a little good boy. And I went past the toilet, and I was dragging the bin over to the gate at the end of the show, and I was like, so where's this girl in my head? But as I walked,
and let me stop Arthur at that point, because the interview just carries on. Now, there's two things I love about that extract. One is if you're exploring the history of dating across the 20th century, you can listen to people like Fred Henskens talking about the 1940s, but you can also listen to young Arthur in the Kimberley, and you can see change across time in courtship, but you can also see change across culture. So in the northwest of Australia in the Kimberleys, where Arthur grew up in an Aboriginal community, you don't approach people directly because that's shameful. So you can get a sense of change across time and change across culture. The other thing I love about the Arthur Hunter extract compared to Fred Henskens is if you just listen to the voices, you hear so much more than if you read the transcripts. And that's one of the joys of this book. Let me go to conclude now. Back to the slides. So we think Australian Lives is a special kind of oral history book for several reasons, as I've explained already. The fact that it gives you rich Australian history, you can listen to the stories, it takes you into the archive. We love the ebook because it's a starting point for listening journeys, as it navigates you into a vast online oral history archive and allows you to explore so many voices, so many stories. And perhaps this is the really revolutionary impact of digital technologies for oral history, that they enable online exploration of the extraordinary oral history interviews that are sitting in archives around the world. We hope you'll experiment with our Australian Lives ebook. Maybe you'll make something similar with your own oral history interviews. Good luck and have fun, and thanks for watching.